pipes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yenaria, Rupert Steele, Erubaga Niman, Ra Bushishoni, now Busha. Good afternoon. My name is Rupert Steele. I'm the chairman of the Confederate Tribes of the Consitution. Honored to be here today. Glad for the sun looking down on us with good thoughts coming down through the sun rays. And I'm honored to give the acknowledgement, land acknowledgement. We collectively acknowledge that Matheson Courthouse is located upon the Aboriginal lands of the Skull Valley Band and Goshutes, the Confederate Tribes of the Goshutes, the Northwestern Bands of Shoshone, the Ute Tribe. As a legal profession gathered to learn and work together today, we are grateful that the Utah's indigenous nations are recognized and acknowledged about their stewardship of this land for millennia. It is important to understand the long-standing history that has brought you to reside on the land. Quote, when we talk about land, land is part of who we are. It's a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future. We carry our answers in us. We all do. Unquote. Mary Lyons, in the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. All tribal people have been subjected to genocide, ethnic cleansing, stolen land, and forced removal to reservations. Our people gave the ultimate sacrifice. Not only me, but my fellow American Indians. So we could be here in Mother Earth to continue to take care of the land like our ancestors have done for millennia. Land acknowledgement is complicated. Keep in mind that the United States government displaced many tribes from land before treaties were signed. We pay our respects to our ancestors and our descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections here and recognize their valuable contributions to Utah society and culture. By offering this land acknowledgement, we recognize the painful history and forced removal of Utah's indigenous peoples. We encourage the legal scholars to find ways to build partnership with sovereign indigenous nations, community, and individuals. Land acknowledgement is not enough. Indian organizations need your support and commitment to change movements and campaigns, and commit to returning land. Local, state, and federal governments around the world are currently returning land to indigenous people. Individuals are returning their land too. Thank you. Honored to be here to give this land acknowledgement.
Thank you all for coming. On behalf of the Utah State Bar, my name is Michelle Oldroyd. I am the Director of Education and Outreach from the bar. We are one of your co-hosts this afternoon, along with the Utah State Boards. And I would be remiss if we didn't begin today's ceremony with a sincere acknowledgement of gratitude to two of the planners who were instrumental in creating what is today's celebration. Valeria Jimenez, who's with us this afternoon, as well as Lucy Beecroft, the tribal liaison on behalf of the courts, were instrumental in bringing you all here, especially you youngsters. Constitution Day is a vibrant celebration all around the U.S. during the month of September, but it's not nearly as vibrant if it's only adults. You are the lifeblood of the American Constitution. If we expect democracy to continue, we have to engage you, and we have to help you and teach you and support your learning. And so today is part of that step. We hope that you feel all included and invited to this conversation, and that we want to welcome you to the spirit of today. The Constitution begins with 3 important words. Every time Justice Ginsburg taught on behalf of the U.S. Supreme Court about the American Constitution, she would begin her remarks with 3 words. We, the people. And today's celebration represents the people of Utah. We are a widespread group, and we come from a variety of backgrounds and walks of life. And we hope that this celebration of the common good really does embody the spirit of the Constitution and is just a beginning of the relationship that we can have with each other to study, to learn, and to respect the rule of law. I want to give the time over to our student guests to offer their presentation. They are going to teach us about their research of the indigenous contribution to the U.S. Constitution, and our students are assembled. We'll ask you to come forward and to line up and face the audience so you can offer your presentation. Thank you, and please help the students feel welcome.
One of the most important events that shaped the Haudenosaunee was the creation of the Gayanashagawa, the Great Law of Peace. It guides the Haudenosaunee through all aspects of life. A full-read edition of this epic, which takes several days to tell, reveals in the ways in which the Peacemaker's teachings emphasizes the power of reason, not force. To ensure the principles of these great laws, righteousness, justice, and health, the Great Law of Peace provides the Haudenosaunee people with instructions on how to treat people, direct them on how to maintain a democratic society, and expresses how reason must prevail in order to preserve peace.
Who are the Haudenosaunee? Haudenosaunee means people who build a house. The name refers to a confederation or alliance among 6 Native American nations, who are more commonly known as the Iroquois Confederacy. Each nation has its own identity with many cultural similarities and family connections. It has its own distinct language. Here are the nations.
I am from the Mohawk tribe, which means people of the flood. I am from the Oneida tribe, which means people of the standing stone.
Hi, I'm from the Onondaga tribe, which means people of the hills.
I am from the Cayuga tribe, which means people of the great swamp. I am from the Seneca tribe, which means people of the great hills.
I'm from the Tuscarora tribe, which means the shirt-wearing people.
Long ago, the Haudenosaunee nations were at war with each other. A woman called the Peacemaker wanted to spread peace and unity throughout the Haudenosaunee territory. While on her journey, the Peacemaker came to a house of an Onondaga leader known as Hiawatha. Hiawatha believed in the message of peace and wanted to spread wanted the Haudenosaunee people to live in a united way.
An evil Onondaga leader named Tadadahu, who hated the message of peace, had heard Hiawatha's wife and daughters during violent times. Tadadahu was feared by all. He was perceived as being so evil that his hair was comprised of withering snakes, symbolizing his twisted mind.
The Peacemaker helped Hiawatha mourn his loss and ease his pain. Hiawatha then traveled with the Peacemaker to help unite the Haudenosaunee.
The Peacemaker used arrows to demonstrate the strength of unity. First, she took a single arrow and broke it in half. Then she took 5 arrows and tied them together. This group of 5 arrows could not be broken. The Peacemaker said, "A single arrow is weak and easily broken. A bundle of arrows tied together cannot be broken."
This represents the strength of having confederacy. It is strong and cannot be broken. The Mohawk, Oneida, Seneca, Cayuga, and Onondaga accepted the message of peace.
With the nations joined together, the Peacemaker and Hiawatha sought out Tadadaho. As they approached Tadadaho, he resisted their invitation to join. The Peacemaker promised Tadadaho that if he accepted the message of peace, Onondaga would be the capital of the Grand Council.
Tadadaho finally submitted the message of peace. It was said that the message of peace combed the snakes from his hair. The name Hiawatha means he who comes, indicating his role of convincing Tadadaho to accept the great law of peace.
Joined together, these 5 nations became known as the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. When peace had successfully been spread among the 5 nations, the people gathered together to celebrate. They uprooted a white pine tree and threw their weapons into the hole. They replanted the tree on top of the weapons and named it the Tree of Peace, which symbolizes the great law of peace that the Haudenosaunee came to live by. The 4 main roots of the Tree of Peace represents the 4 directions and the paths of peace that lead to the heart of the Haudenosaunee territory, where all who want to follow the great law of peace are welcome. At the top of the Tree of Peace is an eagle, guardian of the Haudenosaunee and messenger to the Creator.
The Peacemaker then asked each nation to select a man to be their leaders, called the Haudenosaunee. The Peacemaker gave the laws to the Haudenosaunee men, who formed the Grand Council. The Grand Council is made out of 50 Haudenosaunee makes decisions following the principles set forth in the Great Law of Peace. When decisions are made or laws are passed, the council members must agree on the issue. This is called a consensus.
Today, Haudenosaunee communities continue to live by the principle of the Great Law. The Great Law of Peace is one of the earliest examples of a formal democratic governance structure. The Great Law of Peace was known as some of the founding fathers in having appeared. In terms of designated authorities and balance of power to the U.S. Constitution, the Haudenosaunee Grand Council is the oldest governmental institution still maintaining its original form from North America.
Learn how the U.S. governmental structure is similar and differs from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. The Hodaga Nation are chosen because the men possess honorable qualities and are concerned with the well-being of the Confederacy. Their positions are unpaid and for life. They are selected by the clan mothers. 14 Onaga serve on the Grand Council.
The U.S. Executive Branch. The U.S. President runs for office and is chosen by the Electoral College. The criteria for his candidacy are age, citizenship, and residency. The President serves a 4-year term.
Mohawk and Seneca, the elder brothers of the Confederacy. Mohawk and Seneca are chosen because the men possesses honorable qualities are concerned with the well-being of the Confederacy. Their positions are unpaid for life, and they are selected by the clan mothers, 9 Mohawk and 8 Seneca. Ohane serve on the Grand Council.
Senators run for office and are chosen by popular election. They serve a 6-year term. Each senator must be at least 30 years old, must have been a citizen of the United States for at least the past 9 years, must be at the time of the election, and inhabited of the state they seek to represent. 2 senators represent each state.
Oneida and Cayuga, the younger brothers of the Confederacy. Oneida and Cayuga are chosen because the men possess honorable qualities and are concerned with the well-being of the Confederacy. Their positions are unpaid and for life. The Tuscarora are represented by the Oneida. The Grand Council is made up of 10 Cayuga and 9 Oneida.
The House of Representatives. Each state elects a number of representatives based on the population of its state. Representatives must be at least 25 years old, have been a citizen of the United States for the past 7 years, and be at the time of the election an inhabitant of the state they represent. Representatives serve 2-year terms.
Clan Mothers and Women's Council. Clan Mothers serve for life. They are appointed by the consensus of the clan members. Clan Mothers have the authority to remove office any Ho'ohana who does not serve the best interest of his nation.
The Supreme Court. Judicial branch. The Supreme Court consists of 9 justices, including the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice, all nominated by the President of the United States. Once confirmed by Congress, justices serve for life.
The belt symbolizes the unity of the original 5 Haudenosaunee nations, connected by the Great Law of Peace. Each white square in the tree in the center represents one of the original 5 nations. The white line extending from one end of the belt to the other represents the path of peace, welcoming nations to take shelter under the Great Law of Peace and join the Confederacy. The Tuscarora Nation, the 6th nation of the Confederacy, joined after this belt was created.
Contribution of the Great Law of Peace to the U.S. Constitution. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy was founded by the Great Law of Peace. This law declares the basic respect for all rights of people. The Haudenosaunee shared this belief with Benjamin Franklin, who was very interested with the structure of the Confederacy. Franklin wrote, "It would be strange if the Haudenosaunee could execute a union that persists ages and indissoluble. Yet a like union is impractical for like 12 colonies to whom it is necessary and advantageous." Greatly influenced by the symbol of the Great Law of Peace, the Founding Fathers adopted the representation of the bundle of 3 arrows, of 13 arrows, and indicate the newly formed unified unified government. In 1986, the U.S. Senate formally acknowledged with a special resolution the influence of the Haudenosaunee Great Law of Peace on the U.S. Constitution.
What an honor to witness that land acknowledgement ceremony by Chairman Steele, and to share in honoring the fact that this courthouse is built on Shoshone, Paiute, Goshen, and Ute, ancestral, traditional, Aboriginal lands. It's a chance for me to say thank you, to express gratitude to the members of those nations and to all of our indigenous Utah people for the many ways in which they've helped to make Utah a better place. And it's also a great opportunity to acknowledge the critical role that Native American influence played in the development of the United States Constitution. These beautiful kids did such a great job of acting out how that happened that it almost made me want to cry. It was so well done. Thank you to all of you. And I would like to, for the rest of my talk, speak to you kids, if that's okay. Is that all right? I want to make sure I understood everything you taught me. Okay? I think I'll bring it. Let's see. I'll use a mic so the adults can hear, but I don't think they're going to understand a lot of this. So they don't need to listen. You can explain it to them later. So I want to begin by telling you a story about me. That's my favorite subject. No, I'm just kidding. It is about me, but it's also about my father. My father was a good example. You know why he was a good example? He was nice. You kids seem like you're nice. Am I right? Are you nice? Thought so. Are you nice? He was nice to everybody. And you know what else he did? He treated everybody like they were important. Guess why he did that? Anyone have a guess why he treated people that way? Yes? Because he wanted what? He wanted to be treated the same way. What a great answer. He wanted to be treated the same way. And also he really thought everyone was important. So that's why he treated them. And when I was a kid, I don't think I was as smart as you kids. I don't think I could have given that kind of a play. That was so good. And when I was a teenager, you're not teenagers yet. What grade are you in? 5th? 3rd? 4th? You're going to be a teenager someday. And when I was a teenager, I was kind of a crummy kid. Not really bad. I didn't hurt people and I didn't break the law, but I wasn't a very good kid because I was cranky a lot of the time. You kids ever cranky? Maybe a little bit. I was cranky a lot, especially with my mom and dad. And sometimes, this is terrible, you should never do this, and I don't think you ever will. I was mean to my mom when I was a teenager, and I was selfish. And I was more worried about being popular than doing the right thing. I bet you kids always try to do the right thing. Am I right? I thought so. And my dad used to give speeches just like this one, because his job made him give speeches. And I would sit just like you're sitting and listen to his speeches, and you know what? He would talk about me. And guess what he would say? Who has a guess? What do you think? It's hard. It's a hard question. Anybody have a guess? Did he say, my son is such a crummy teenager? You think he said that? He could have, but he didn't. He said, I'm so proud of my son. He's such a good example to his brothers and sisters and to his friends. He's such a good boy. And I would think, not really. I'm not a good example, but you know what I wanted to be? What do you think I wanted to be? That's exactly right. I wanted to be a good example. I wanted to be as good a person as he thought I was. And because he was a good example to me, what do good examples do? Yeah, what does a good example do? They make you want to be nice to others. They make you want to be a better person. I bet you have lots of good examples in your life. You want to be a better person, don't you? Okay, now I want to talk about another good example that you taught me about. You taught me so well, I want to see if I remember things right. Who's a good example you taught me about? Who? Who? Who's a good example you taught me about? Who? You taught me about the great peacemaker in Hiawatha, didn't you? And you taught me about the 5 nations. Who was there for the Mohawk nation? Raise your hand. Mohawk? How about Seneca? Raise your hand. Who is Seneca? Yes. How about Cayuga? Cayuga? Oneida? Yes. Onondaga? Yes. Tuscarora? Wasn't that a great story? Weren't those nations great examples? Because you taught me they were fighting with each other, weren't they? And there were wars. There was a scary guy with snakes on his head. But did they keep having wars? What changed? What happened? Yes. They got together and they made peace. They knew they would be happier with peace. They had great leaders who knew they would be happy with peace. And they created a great law of peace. And you know what I think that is? It's a constitution. Right? You've learned a lot about the Constitution. What's a constitution? That's a hard one. You want to try that. What's a constitution? It tells us what kind of nation we want to be. Okay, well, what did the 5 nations and then the 6 nations, what kind of nation did they want to be? Yes. What a great answer. They wanted to be one nation. They wanted to cooperate, have peace. You know what else they wanted? They wanted, like you taught me, they wanted freedom, liberty. And they thought everybody should get to vote. They wanted democracy. And they thought women should have an important place in their government, right? And they wanted government, a grand council that would be in charge of all the 5 and then 6 nations. But they wanted each tribe also to be able to govern themselves. So today we call that federalism. They had so many good ideas, didn't they? And put them in the Constitution. And you know what else you taught me? You taught me that there were so many great ideas that the people who were writing the United States Constitution, what did they do with those ideas? What do you think they did with those ideas? What did they do with them? They said, we like those ideas. We're going to put those ideas in our Constitution, in the United States Constitution. And now, we all have the United States Constitution. All of us Americans have the United States Constitution. And it's not exactly like the Six Nations Constitution, is it? But it's very similar. Why? Because the Iroquois League, or the Six Nations Constitution, was a good example for the United States Constitution. And that is just one of the many, many debts that we owe as Americans, our indigenous Americans. Right? You kids are fantastic. And thanks again for that wonderful performance. We all learned so much. Thank you.
I'll ask our students to just assemble themselves and sit down once more as we offer up conversations in the courthouse are, I think, because I'm a lawyer, really lovely and they teach a lot. Our conversations in our courtrooms are full of respect and they're full of due process, allowing both sides, both opinions to be heard in an argument in a case. But rarely is the conversation in a courthouse so filled with humanity and grace and the sincerity of our young people. And so I think today is particularly an honor to host you, to include you, to hear your voice as part of the courthouse conversation, celebrating our Constitution and the rule of law. I'm going to introduce a friend of mine, a good colleague, John Quinte from the Office of Fairness and Accountability will offer us a conclusion for today's ceremony.
This has been a great program. You know, the last couple of weeks, I'm just gonna be vulnerable and open up here. The last couple of weeks, I have been thinking a lot about who we say we are. Perhaps may not always be who we may want to be at that moment. And if there's any disconnects, then it's up to us to make those changes. And I think the same thing applies to our Constitution. As was mentioned today by our chief and by Chairman Steele, we know that the rights espoused by our Constitution, that great document, haven't always been felt equally by all communities here in our country. Now, the judiciary is uniquely positioned in this because by our very nature, we are the stewards of the Constitution. We literally decide what's constitutional and not. But we hope that this event today shows a genuine desire to recognize, show respect for the influence, for the power, for the importance that indigenous culture has had in our country, as well as in our governing documents, including our very own Constitution. The OFA, the Office of Fairness and Accountability, as well as the courts, we hope that by working together, by respecting sovereignty, jurisdictions, and building on our common ground of giving everyone access to justice, we can make sure that we are who we say we are, and we do what we say we stand for. So we hope that this is our first step of many in building these bonds. To the youngsters here, I know sometimes this gets thrown around, but I hope that you know genuinely that you are your elders and your ancestors' wildest dreams, and that by engaging and working together, that you know that you can find justice when you come to this building. This has been a great Constitution Day. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you.
For you youngsters and those who gathered in support of these students, we have a few refreshments as well as some treats for you to take back and a copy of the Constitution, hoping that you'll do a bit of studying. Not to give you any extra homework, but we do encourage you to read it. Thanks so much for being part of today.